Thank you guys for tuning in to the virtual candidate forums hosted by Teaching for the Culture. My name is Bianca Goolsby, and I'm the founder, and I'm here to say thank you for being here, for being engaged and being intentional with who is going to be in our school board seats. Our children deserve the best, and we want to make sure that you are operating and you're listening very closely to what these candidates have to say. Thank you guys so much for following us. Make sure that you take a look at our website, www.teachingfortheculture.com. In addition to that, follow us on social media at Teaching for the Culture. Just a couple of rules. I want you guys to relax, have fun, and also be intentional with what the candidates have to say. If you post your questions, we will screen it. And if we have enough time, we will make sure that those questions are addressed as well. Thank you to the community that have submitted questions to us, and we are excited to get started.
Manager with BMO Harris Bank and a member of the Manatee County community. I'll be moderating tonight's debate or forum for Teaching for the Culture. I wanted to talk about Teaching for the Culture. The forum follows a nonpartisan, unbiased, and impartial format. Time limits for all comments will be strictly enforced in fairness to all candidates and the audience. We ask that these limits be followed and respected. We want to make sure that everyone has enough time to speak. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening remarks to introduce themselves so that we can address as many questions as possible in the time available. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. If time permits, candidates will also have 2 minutes for a closing statement. In fairness to all candidates, we'll rotate in the order of how these questions are answered. We'll have a few amendments tonight. Dave Miner was invited to participate in tonight's forum, but he is unable to join us, and the same for Rick Murphy. So we will have Scott Boyce, Christine Dawson, and Mary Foreman. When you hear me say time, your time will be up, and we will move on to the next person, the next candidate, or we'll move on to the next question. We're going to get started with our opening statements. 2 minutes, Scott Boyce.
Thank you so much for having us tonight. For the next few years, it's going to be very important to elect someone onto the board that has knowledge of running a school. Currently, we do not have that. I have a very successful track record in Manatee County school system, and I have more experience in teaching and leading my schools than anyone running for the seat. I was elected as the Principal of the Year in 2009. I have experience teaching special education students as a teacher and also regular education students in grades 5th, 4th, and 2nd grades. I got my master's then in educational leadership and was an assistant principal for 3.5 years. Then I became a principal for 17 years in 3 very different types of school. First, I was a principal at Samoset Elementary School for 8 years. I brought its grade up to an A from a D. Next, I was transferred to Palmasola Elementary School, a higher socioeconomic school, and brought its grade up from a C to an A. Next, then I was transferred to Jesse P. Miller, which was 69% free and reduced lunch, and I brought its grade up to a B from a C. Let me tell you why I'm running for the school board. Over the past few years, I've watched the school board struggle with certain members not being willing to be collaborative. I have seen and heard parents and community members continually express concern that they are not being heard. Being a parent first and then becoming a teacher, assistant principal, and principal has prepared me for this job. Within the next 4 years, we will be hiring a new superintendent. It could be next year or within the next 4 years. It's going to be imperative to have someone on the board that has this extensive experience in our schools.
Time. Thank you, Mr. Boyce. We're going to move on to Christine Dawson. Before we do that, we want to alert that Rick Murphy is here. So, Christine, 2 minutes for your opening comments.
Also appreciate the invitation to participate in this forum. With closing the achievement gap, a long-time problem and seemingly an unsolvable task to many districts and school boards, I'm choosing to quickly introduce experience at 4 schools, if time, that demonstrate there are viable solutions that can be replicated and all demand that equity is the tool of the solution. As a teacher at Manatee Elementary during the 80s and early 90s, teachers were given the authority to create one of two school-wide Title I models. They changed the processes to choose superior reading programs, delivery systems of instruction, and to organize school-wide scheduling rotations based on ability, not grade. Teachers and students thrived. The equity was the teacher authority granted. As an assistant principal at Daughtry Elementary beginning in the late 90s, the school moved from a D to an A grade and, more importantly, sustained this grade for 7 years. The equity in this situation was the excellent leadership provided by the principal of the school, an excellent Title I principal who understood competencies, who understood learning needs, and could pull more data and more information out of a piece of data than in any model that I've ever seen. My post-retirement experience as a board member of Lincoln Memorial Academy, which was a public conversion charter school, proved that equity can be created. When representation matters, a component that was built into the charter to mandate certain staffing rules. During its first year of operation, the staff assembled was a mirror of the students in regards to race, language, gender, and ethnicity. It's a game changer for relationship.
Christine, time. Thank you. Mary Foreman, opening statements, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Appreciate being here. This week, something really great happened for me, and that was the Observer newspaper endorsed me, saying that no one knows about Manatee County School District's finances. No one knows more than Mary Foreman. Taxpayers need her on the board. And let me tell you why they got it right and why it's important to elect someone who understands the finances. They're right. None of the candidates knows more about finances than I do. I've been a CPA for more than 40 years, and for the last 7 years, I've been a member and was a past chair of the school board's volunteer audit committee. And during my time on the audit committee, I have seen the board make decisions based on flawed, inaccurate, or incomplete information. No one on the board knows how to look at the information they're given and ask the right questions. For example, in 2017, the district went 9 months without reconciling bank accounts. And in 2019, it happened again, this time for a year and a half. The board was kept in the dark about it, but yet it continued approving monthly financial statements. No one is watching the money. Now, why do finances matter? If the district doesn't know how much money it has, it can't know how much it has to pay teachers and instructional programs. If money is misspent, as it was in the recent purchase of an ERP computer software system, that is money that is not available for classroom aids and textbooks. Currently, the board has got 2 teachers, a businessman, an attorney, and a pastor. What they don't have is a CPA, and that's what it will take to bring order to the chaos that is our district's finances. I'm Mary Foreman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Rick Murphy, 2 minutes for your opening statements, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for allowing me to join the meeting and have a chance to talk to you folks. First of all, let me tell you, I'm a former teacher in Manatee County. I taught at King Middle, Harley Middle, many of the high schools, different schools. The last year I taught, I worked in system. I taught at different schools and elementaries. I wanted to study them. And also I finished up at Tillman, then went back to FAU to start a program in Palm Beach County and do internships with schools that I created. Over there, I opened the middle school and worked in high school administration. I'm from Henry County originally, born and raised. I went to school there and worked in business. Later, decided to run for school board. Won from 94 to 2008. Went back to school at night, become a teacher because I saw the difference I'd make. And then got involved and started teaching in Highlands County, taught middle school 6 through 8. That was a rude awakening. I had a very good mentor, Mr. Darrell Bryan, former superintendent of Hardy County. After that, I ran for superintendent of Henry County Schools, 2008-12, won the election, served in the worst time of the country. So if you want to talk about budgets, I've run budgets. You want to talk about looking at the details of a budget, I've created them. I've administered them. In my district, we were 2.09%, no reserve. When I left in 2012, we were 12%, and that's without cutting salaries and cutting jobs. So anyway, after that, went to Palm Beach County and worked into the administration there, high school administration, and then opened a middle school, came back here to Highlands County to help my daughter with her kids. They were in the system. One of them still is. She's at Paris Community High School. One graduated from Palmetto High School. And as far as my experience goes, I've done everything from a classroom teacher to a substitute job, paraprofessional, school district administrator, school administrator, and also a superintendent. I also served on the Henry County School Board 14 years. I believe that my experience will allow me to work with the board and work with the administration of the district. And also, hopefully, can you hear me okay?
It's time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, before we start talking about specific issues and discussions about District 3, let's establish a foundation on the roles and responsibilities of a school board member. A reminder that you will have 1 minute to answer each question, and this rotation will start with Christine Dalston. Christine, what do you believe is the role of a school board member?
The role of a school board member is to govern the school district. The school board is responsible for governing its superintendent, which in turn is to ensure the communication of policy to all members of the school community. Sometimes a policy can become flawed because of its implementation. The monitoring of policy by the school board members is absolutely necessary. School board members must provide adequate materials for all students. I feel that a school board needs to provide superior materials for all students and not just one material for all students. I think the move to a both and philosophy rather than an either or, a one size fits all, does not work in Manatee County.
Thank you. Next, Mary Foreman, what do you believe is the role of a school board member?
The school board sets policy. It hires the superintendent. It hires an attorney, a internal auditor, and external auditor, and oversees. They have to trust the superintendent to get the job done. They have to hold her accountable. Now, their tools for doing so are a policy manual and a strategic plan. And the strategic plan sets forth what their goals are, how they want finances spent, what resources are going to be used. And they expect that the superintendent is going to fulfill it. Expect that the budget is going to meet that. And they're going to hold her accountable if it doesn't. Now, our district has not been setting what they call any benchmarks, the key performance indicators. So they have not been operating as a proper.
Next, we'll go to Rick Murphy. What do you believe is the role of a school board member?
It's a huge task. It's a learning curve for some people who have never done it. My experience, 14 years, I can testify to that. But the role is basically you set policy, you administer policy, you also administer the budget, you control the money, you allocate the funds, you also work through the budget process, which is going on now. You talk about the local required effort and things like that. You agree to that. You also work with the superintendent and the staff and the entire organization, not just the superintendent. The superintendent works with the board in this district, and that superintendent directs staff and directs the programs of the school district. The board actually works with the superintendent together as a leadership team, and they should. They don't always get along, don't have to agree, but they need to work together for the best interest of the district. the stewardship of the money and also watching the taxpayers' money is very important, especially when you have another $2 million money already tacked on as of 2 years ago. So I think it's very important we watch the money, but the money should follow the child. That's the main thing.
And
sure
time. Thank you, sir. Scott, boys, what do you believe is the role of a school board member?
Thank you. Gosh, everybody has pretty much hit it. It's setting that policy, setting the budget, hiring the superintendent, hiring the board attorney and the internal auditor. One thing that I like best about being a school board member is having access directly with the superintendent pretty much any time that you need to. So when problems arise, as people are communicating and teachers and needs arise, there's that possibility of being able to go in and talk directly with the superintendent. And again, one of the most important things here is hiring the superintendent. We are going to be hiring a new superintendent, whether it's next year or within 3 or 4 years. Whoever is hired, whoever is voted in as the new school board member is going to be part of that process of selecting a superintendent. So it's important to elect someone that has interview knowledge and has hired many other people and understands the inside and outs of a school. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question, we're going to start with Mary. It's a two-part question. What unique skills would you bring to the board? And do you have a unique perspective that may be underrepresented or absent on today's board?
Well, absolutely, the skills that I have are absent, and I'm certainly the only finance person to be running for this position. I have spent a lot of time, donated countless hours to the school district. These are all volunteer, with the audit committee. And the audits that we oversee are not just financial, but they're operational as well. And so I have a unique perspective in that I have seen all of this from the 60,000 foot view, which is what board members, how they operate. But I have seen things like human resources, personnel, transportation, IT, the business
And
computer
time,
system.
Mary.
Okay.
Thank you. Rick Murphy, what unique skills would you bring to the board? And do you have a unique perspective that may be underrepresented or absent on the board today?
Well, I would say I have a lot of experience that brings a lot of skills to the table. Having worked everything from transportation, road school buses, worked and built schools, worked with architects, things like that, and also worked everything as a classroom teacher, substitute, school administrator, district administrator, superintendent. I believe that the skills I have will hopefully unite the board and work together for the common good of the district and the students and the employees and the community. And I think in the past that's been a problem. But as far as the other, I think that sometimes you overlook that the bigger picture. I could be in the superintendent's shoes as far as looking at things, what I'm thinking about. Sitting on the board, I can look at the superintendent's perspective. I can also look at the classroom teacher's perspective. Also can look at a bus driver and a custodian's perspective. We're all one group, and you have to be able to understand each one's jobs and understand how they do their job and support them. And I believe my experience will help do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Boys, what unique skills do you bring to the board? And do you have a unique perspective that may be underrepresented or absent on the board today?
Well, I start with my educational leadership master's that I have, which gave me classes on Florida educational funding and district financing as governed by the state of Florida. There are a lot of rules to follow in finance. Sometimes people ask, why are we building buildings? We should be paying teachers more. Money comes from different pots. So we need to understand that so that we can send that money into the correct directions and pay for things. I have knowledge of Title I budgets, over 10 years of that, and the rules that govern those schools. I also have a proven successful track record, raising a school from an A to a D, a Title I school. And then the other thing that's very important is collaboration, communicating with teachers, parents, other members of the school system, and to work together for a common goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Dawson, same question. What unique skills would you bring to the board? And do you have a unique perspective that may be underrepresented or absent from the board today?
Thank you. I bring a breadth and width of educational experience that is needed very much on this current board. Upon my retirement from the district in 2015, I had held roles as a teacher in the classroom, a reading coach, an ESE specialist, an instructional specialist, an assistant principal, and a principal. Post-retirement, I served on the governing board of Lincoln Memorial Academy, a public conversion charter school. My service on many planning and leadership committees for Title I, they stand as exemplary with contributions that are still in place today, which demonstrates sustainability of my ideas and contributions. My experience as a Title I teacher, administrator, really shows.
Time, Christine, thank you. All right, with this next question, question number 3 is going to be coming from Teaching for the Culture. We want you to identify the difference between equality and equity. Rick Murphy, we're going to start with you. 1 minute.
Teaching to the culture. Culture of the school district is very important. And to have leadership and administrators, principals, assistant principals that understand that well, and also make sure they're trained on the latest techniques and research is very important. Teaching the culture is what you're teaching to. You have a very diverse culture here in Manatee County. You have some areas that are high poverty, low income. You have some that are astute, so to speak. But you have to look at demographics of that. I think you have to drill it down to the data to make sure that when you run your curriculum and your instruction, that you address the actual needs of every student body. And the equality part is to make sure everybody gets a very good education. With the district, as a board member, you want to allocate all the resources to all the schools. Title I schools are very important. They get some extra funding. They get reading coaches, math coaches, and some different things. So you want to make sure they have the resources. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Scott Boys, we're going to go to you for this next question. This question is coming from Teaching for the Culture. We would like for you to identify the difference between equality and equity. 1 minute's on the clock.
Thank you. Well, equality, of course, is the same at every school, that we can offer every student the equality of what is being learned and taught at other schools. And equity is being fair and impartial. This is why Title I schools get an extra resource of funds, is to help give them the equity that they need to help bring those students up. One thing that I find, though, very important in our county is I would like to see our county give extra money to assist schools that are not quite Title I, but they have many students that are from that background and that economic standard. So I'd like to see some additional funds going to them to help with that equity. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Dawson, same question. It's coming from Teaching for the Culture. Identify the difference between equality and equity.
Equality means that all students in any school system have equal access and opportunity to access the education, the superior education given in that district, in public education. I find that that is not true in Manatee County. And oftentimes it is because of the perception of the equity that needs to be provided to a school, whether it is a well-achieving school or whether it is a school that is struggling to close their achievement gap. Equity comes in many forms. It does not mean that you throw money at a school to hire more people or to provide services that perhaps are not needed. Equity can come in the form of developing cultural competency that will address needs of students. It comes in the form of teacher authority to choose the materials that will work with their students. It comes
And
in.
time. Thank you. Mary Foreman, this question, again, is from Teaching for the Culture. Identify the difference between equality and equity.
Okay. I'd like to borrow on an illustration that Bridget Mendel used when you were doing the forum with her. I thought it was very effective. If you have two people and they want to look over a wall, you give them a stool the same size, that's equality. But equity is if one of those persons is too short to be able to see over, he needs something more. And that's what the school district needs to pay attention to and to devote its resources to, is to those people who need a little, not sometimes a little, sometimes a lot, but they need additional resources to help them achieve a good education.
Thank you. Question number 4. We're going to start with Scott Boyes. What do you see as the district's greatest challenges, and how would you work to address them as a school board member? One more time. What do you see as the district's greatest challenges, and how would you work to address them as a school board member?
In 1 minute. Okay. Coronavirus how will our student instruction look like, and our current scenarios that are being considered by the district? How's that going to affect our teachers, our students' learning, while at the same time keeping our teachers and students safe from the virus? How about the coronavirus giving us loss of sales tax revenue? It affects the budget and making sure that every dollar is spent on those students in the classroom. Budgets are going to need to be tightened and every dollar spent and scrutinized very much. Another important area to consider is our reading. We are just above 50% of our students at or above grade level in reading. Reading is key to all of our subjects. It must be made a greater priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Dawson, what do you see as the district's greatest challenges, and how would you work to address them as a school board member?
As a school board member, I think I have addressed the achievement gap that seems to plague our school board and our district. I also feel that the current crisis that we are confronting, a health crisis, a science crisis, a crisis that belongs to Mother Nature, I think we have to move away from the status quo. We have to confront this crisis that's never been seen before in the modern world. It demands attention to developing the correct adaptive strategies. As much as we all want our teachers back in school, as much as we want our kids back in school, it's hard to confront the change that perhaps a new instructional delivery must be developed first. It needs to have open architecture and framework to develop a system of distance learning that will be effective in the case of a pandemic, an example such as this, where students cannot be safely in our schools right now.
Thank you. Mary Foreman, what do you see as the district's greatest challenges, and how would you work to address them as a school board member?
I think, obviously, as the other candidates were saying, that the COVID is going to be the greatest challenge in the next year to 2 years. And to address that, I've got the ability to make sure that the money is wisely spent, and that the resources provide ability for distance education. For example, right now the plan that they have they're for anyone wanting to do the hybrid or to do the distance learning, they have to have internet. And that's just wrong. We are required to give everyone a fair, to give them access to education, and to give them no choice but to go 5 days a week to bricks and mortar is just wrong for the people who can't afford internet.
Time. Thank you. Rick Murphy, what do you see as the district's greatest challenge, and how would you work to address them as a school board member?
Well, I think, like the other folks have already said, the biggest challenge is going to be opening school, whether we do it traditionally or online, so on. And also making sure that our students and employees, all of our staff are safe. And when we have a problem, we address it. If you have to shut down a school, which is what you have to do for 15 days, quarantine, clean, make sure that's done. Also make sure those kids provide an education with online. They have to go that way. I think the other thing is to make sure that we have plenty of additional staff that can clean schools. I know the district cut some staff a couple weeks ago. And that's one thing you don't do during times like this, I believe. So making sure the students have online access is very important. You can do that by partnering with other providers, Infinity, so on. And making sure those parents know how to operate the system to help the kids get online. There's a lot of fear out there. I talk to a lot of parents, a lot of teachers. You may have teachers who may not show up either. So it all depends on who shows up, how much reason. Thank you.
I think my mic was muted. Mary, we're going to start with you. It's well past the time for the Florida educational officials to re-examine and reinvigorate the 1994 infusion law to truly prioritize Black history and ethics studies for a generation of students. If elected, what is your plan to ensure all students will receive Black history education as required by law? This law can be found by researching Florida Statute 1003.42. Mary, question to you.
Well, first of all, if we are not following state law since 1994, that points to a systemic problem. The enforcement and operation of it is the responsibility of the superintendent, and if they're not, the board's got to hold her accountable. So as a board member, I would definitely research this and make her him or her to implement it and to operate.
Thank you. Scott, we're going to come to you for this same question. It's well past the time for the Florida education officials to re-examine and reinvigorate the 1994 infusion law to truly prioritize Black history and ethics studies for a new generation of students. If elected, what is your plan to ensure all students will receive Black history education as required by law? And the law can be found by researching Florida Statute 1003.42.
Well, I can tell you this, that at the 3 schools that I was the principal at, we did just that. Now, I think we can improve upon what we were doing, and that was we would spend a month, January, some February, to look at Black History Month. But we have a very unique, sadly to say, opportunity with everything that is happening right now with Black Lives Matter and the police situation, and we need to just continue teaching all the way through the year about that, not just 1 month out of the year for the entire year. At Samoset, we taught cultural differences with family nights. And we had them come in and cook their different foods from their different cultures, things of that nature to help improve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick, this is a longer question. Do you need it reread or are you prepared to go? You're muted. You did what I did a few minutes ago.
Got to blame it on something. Go ahead.
All right.
Now you're muted.
Hear me?
And now I can hear you.
All right, good. It's well past the time for the Florida education officials to re-examine and reinvigorate the 1994 infusion law to truly prioritize Black history and ethics studies for a new generation of students. If elected, what is your plan to ensure all students will receive Black history education as required by law? This law can be found by researching Florida Statute 1003.42.
Well, first of all, I would make sure that we're following the law and make sure the district administration has an emphasis on that too, and our schools. It's very important. You know, Black history is part of history. And so I think it's best we make sure that we're following the law and also using the curriculum and different events we can have to celebrate Black history. We've always done that, you know, Black History Months and bringing in people. Give me an example. I've worked in administration in Palm Beach County at a 70% roughly Haitian high school. And we had Black History Month and also night. We brought in the Haitian community. They cooked. We did all kinds of celebrations and so on. We worked very closely with them because those kids, you know, wanted to celebrate too. And we need to make sure everybody understands everybody's culture because we're all different cultures, but we need to celebrate Black history as it's supposed to be done, of course, according to statute and also as public history. It's very important, and I think that we need to make sure that the district's on top of that.
Time. Thank you, sir. Christine, same courtesy. Would you like the question repeated?
Yes, please.
It's well past the time for Florida education officials to re-examine and reinvigorate the 1994 infusion law to truly prioritize Black history and studies for a new generation of students. If elected, what is your plan to ensure all students will receive Black history education as required by law? And the law can be found by researching Florida Statute 1003.42.
I totally disagree that Black history can be addressed during a month, a particular month, as it has been done in Manatee County for years. Black history, Latino history is not included in our texts, our social science texts that are chosen by and vetted by our district. If we are to infuse our education with Black history that occurs every month of the year, then the proper vetting of publishing companies and textbooks must be done. And this vetting must be directed by the school board to assure that the text and the books we are selecting include Black history as dictated by this statute and law enacted in 1994. It's time to look at publishing companies that go beyond the realm of what we already use.
Thank you. Question number 6 is going to be going to Scott first. How would you develop and maintain a relationship with the district to better understand teacher perspectives and what works best for students?
Wow. Okay, so being able to communicate directly with teachers and with parents of students is going to be paramount. And what I am proposing is that I would establish a type of Zoom meeting or a StreamYard program so that I can at least communicate with those people on a much larger arena. It's going to be very important to be able to get their ideas and thoughts so that then we can help assist with the superintendent in making sure that they understand, he or she, what is happening in our schools, and so that we can better instruct and coordinate all of those activities. Thanks.
Thank you. Christine, we're going to be going to you next for question number 6. How would you develop and maintain a relationship with the district to better understand teacher perspectives and what works best for students?
Teacher's perspective relates directly to teacher authority in the classroom. I feel our district has moved away from the professional worth of teachers. They should have the authority in the classroom to choose the materials that work best for their students. They are the ones in charge of the instruction. Yet we micromanage them. We don't pay attention to their perspectives, which oftentimes I think can be a cure to the problems that exist in our district, such as the achievement gap. When we are thinking enough and free enough as a board to accept that there are many paths to a solution, I think the perspective and the information we can glean from our teachers will become a much bigger goal of the school board.
Thank you. Mary Foreman, how would you develop and maintain a relationship with the district to better understand teacher perspectives and what works best for students?
What I have observed in my time with the district is that teachers are reluctant to come forward, that they fear retaliation, and so they don't want to talk about it. And that's going to be a big one to overcome. I think that I definitely want to go and visit each school and reach out to not only principals and administrators, but the teachers. And I want a dialogue with them. I have family members who are teachers, and I understand some of the frustrations that they encounter every day. And I will have open email. I will respond to emails, unlike a lot of our board members, and I'll return phone calls. And I would welcome them to reach out to me, and I will keep it confidential.
Time, thank you. Rick, question number 6. How would you develop and maintain a relationship with the district to better understand teacher perspectives and what works best for students?
Well, first of all, I think I would be like I've always done in the past, is to be accessible and also visit schools. I've always walked in classrooms with permission from the principal and also the teacher. And, also talk to staff constantly about what they want to do, what's successful, what we're not doing right, what we can do right, and valuing what they tell you. Sometimes, when you get out of a classroom in administration, you may forget where you come from, and you don't value the worth of that classroom teacher and also the school administrator, who they know their students best. They know what works. They have curriculums they want to try. They got strategies. So I think we need to make sure that, as board members, we're going to be hands-on, not tell them what to do, but also be there to listen and take what they say, for what it's worth, and also make sure we come back to the district administration and say, look, here's what I'm hearing, and what can we do to address this? I think the biggest thing right now is teachers probably feel like they're not heard, and sometimes when they give their input, it's not used properly. So I need to make sure that's done. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 7. Christine, we're going to be starting with you. The data highlights a high percentage of Black and Brown students at Horizons Alternative School. What will you do to ensure that the transition is lawful, fair, and equitable moving forward?
The transition of most students to Horizons is not comprehensive enough. Sometimes it involves a single staffing where decisions are made to move students because of behavior that has occurred in the traditional school setting, and there have not been enough accommodations, strategies, or solutions applied to the problem before students are moved to Horizon. The representation of Black students, Latino students in Horizons far outnumbers the population of white students at that school. There have been problems with the record keeping, the reporting rules that govern that school. Administration has been called into question. The superintendent's relationship with that school has been called into question.
And time. Thank you. Mary Foreman, same question. The data highlights a high percentage of Black and Brown students at Horizon Alternative School. What will you do to ensure the transition is lawful, fair, and equitable moving forward?
Okay. By the time a student is transferred to Horizon, the district has failed them. It was a long time ago. So I believe very strongly that we need to get the resources to help the people of color, either with social or academics. By the time they go to Horizon, I understand that they have an inordinate amount and that people are being transferred there without due process. And I will insist that change. For a student to be told one day from the next that, okay, today you go to Horizon, is just not acceptable. It needs to be done in a thoughtful committee way, where and with the parent and representatives of that student on hand.
Thank you. Same question for you, Rick. The data highlights a high percentage of Black and Brown students at Horizon Alternative School. What will you do to ensure the transition is lawful, fair, and equitable moving forward?
Well, first of all, make sure it's done by board policy and procedure. There's procedures in place that administrators have to go through to document and make sure there's interventions, whether it's social, emotional, different things, and that process needs to be followed. And as a board member and a former superintendent, I'll come in and look at that originally the first time I come in, if I'm elected, and make sure what that compares to what I've seen in the past and also what has been done by other districts. And look at the data of some of the districts that have different data than what we have in Manatee and see what they're doing as interventions and also training to make sure our staff understands behavior problems and make sure that we hopefully have interventions before it gets to that point. Also talking with the parents, make sure there's an outreach, see what's going on at home. That's a big factor, especially today. It's tough and it's going to get tougher. So I think the main thing is to make sure that the board member goes by that and also by statute. You want to make sure that you follow statute, board policy, make sure the interventions are done at the school level and support staff.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, question number 7. The data highlights a high percentage of Black and Brown students at the Horizon Alternative School. What will you do to ensure that the transition is lawful, fair, and equitable moving forward?
At my schools, I know that we have always followed due process. But you know what? This isn't just a problem for Horizons. It's also a problem in our ESE. And it's going to be very important that we understand cultural and our differences and why do students from different backgrounds make certain decisions that they do. I read a book called Teaching It with Poverty in Mind, Eric Jensen. I would suggest this for everyone. The book opened up my mind up to about the differences in cultures and how our brains develop. I would like to see a book study done for all of our teachers and staff to help them have a better understanding. So we don't refer students of color to Horizons when they seem out of control. And of course, we've got to make sure that due process is followed. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 8. We're starting with you on this one, Rick. In 1 minute, please provide the community a snapshot of your first 90-day plan if you are the elected candidate.
First of all, I won't wait till I'm sworn in. I guarantee you that. I'll be at the superintendent's office the next day if I'm elected. And then authority will take course when I'm sworn in, of course. But to make sure that I get off to a good start, also go around and visit all the schools, talk to the staff, the teachers, the administrators, talk to the transportation department, talk to facilities, and kind of get an input on what everybody's thinking and what they suggest. and kind of feel the culture of the district. I've already done that some, but that's very important, getting off to a good start. And also reviewing board policy and making sure that everything is being followed as you go along. But also, I think you also need to make sure that you understand the system. Things change constantly. And to make sure you also have a good feel for what the system needs by listening to the employees and talk to parents, what they're talking about, what they're saying, things they're concerned about. And also, you also want to go ahead and look at the budget, because the budget controls the services. And that's going to be a major task. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, we're going back to you. 1 minute to provide us with a snapshot of your first 90 days.
Okay, well, the first thing is, just like Rick was saying, get in there and meet with the superintendent. I've got a few things that I would like to discuss with her and find out what's going on with those. I want to establish Zoom monthly meetings, as I said before, with different groups to be able to communicate thoughts and ideas to me about agenda items that are coming up, visiting schools and making sure that safe standards are in place, communicating with our parents and our principals and about concerns that they have. And of course, then communicating with teachers and staff to stay in touch with everything that is going on. Give them a way to be able to communicate with me directly via phone number or emails. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Christine, your first 90-day snapshot.
I think attention needs to be given to developing a new instructional delivery for our students. Because of the crisis we are in now, I don't believe it's going to go away suddenly, nor do I believe that it will not be back again. Developing the new instructional delivery using correct adaptive strategies is paramount. The school board must make sure that they are leading that effort to provide equality and equal access for all students to a remote or digital access learning platform. I also feel that as a school board member, I want to start looking immediately at the salary schedule for our teachers. I feel the emphasis needs to be put at the top step. I don't think the question is, how can we attract new teachers to our district? It is how to keep our veteran teachers of 10 years or more.
Time. Thank you. Mary Foreman, same question. 1 minute, first 90 days in office if you're elected.
Okay, well, as my colleagues, my priority will be to immediately get out and start visiting the schools, meeting the teachers, having discussions with not only the superintendent, but also the director of operations, the deputy director of finance, and to get established a basis there. One of the things that I will bring to the board's attention and demand that it be included on the agenda is to open the meetings back up for meaningful public comment and public participation. Right now, agendas are being published with scant information so that the public really can't address it. They're being restricted to being able to only address what's on the agenda, and they're not allowed to do it in person or by telephone. It has to be in writing, and those are not shared with the public.
Thank you. Our next question, Christine, we're going to start with you. What would you want to see in the superintendent's budget to address equity and ensure all children receive an equitable education?
I think, as I have said earlier, the definition of equity needs to be addressed at each school. Whether it is a Title I school or a school that is struggling to close an achievement gap, or whether it is a well-performing school where equity applied can boost the students from going to a level 3 to a level 4 to a level 5. The eye is to increase achievement at all levels and accelerate the learning. Get the focus off remediation and get it on acceleration. Let's refer to our students in this district as our students, not marginalize any subset by looking at them as those students that prevent us from becoming an A district. It's paramount as a school board governing a superintendent.
And time. Thank you. Mary, you're next. What would you want to see in the superintendent's budget to address equity and ensuring all children receive an equitable education?
Okay. I have two things here. One is the amount of resources, the amount of that's going toward administration as opposed to instruction. In the first 6 years that I was on the audit committee, I saw administrative personnel increase by 72%, whereas instructional personnel increased by 24%. That tells you where they want to spend their money. The second is the budget procedure. When a school is told what its budget is at the beginning of the year, it in no way matches what they are actually going to get. If you look at the budget of a school compared to the actual, every single school goes over their budget, and that's because the money is sitting in a fund that is distributed as the schools need it. Now that's right for schools to be receiving it
And time.
unfairly.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, what would you want to see in the superintendent's budget to address equity and ensure all students receive an equitable education?
The superintendent's budget that the board approves and controls with expenditures during the budgeting process is very important to look at. You have to make sure that every school receives equal funding, even though they have Title I funding, which is extra. You want to make sure that every department have what they need. And you also want to look at probably going back to a budget that's zero-based, but also looking at the history, the trends. I think when you come down to student services and budgeting for school-based cost, you want to make sure every school has equal resources and make sure you have professional development in that budget. That's very important. Make sure teachers have that opportunity to have that professional development and not be just a generic. Everything's pretty well personalized when you look at it. It should be. And looking at the salary schedule, it's very important. You got two salaries. You got the 10-year salary. You've got the latest salary, which is after 2011. You have to make sure that you retain teachers, and that's veteran teachers. So, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Boyes, same question. What would you want to see in the superintendent's budget to address equity and ensuring all children receive an equitable education?
Very good. And I've also mentioned this earlier. Title I schools, as defined, is that 75% of our students are free and reduced. We have schools out there, well, actually, all schools have what we would consider Title I students. They're not Title I because they're not at a Title I school, but they have some of the disadvantages as well. And especially those, and so funding for those students, money for those students to assist with them would be very important. So I would like to see in the superintendent's budget that we support those students from lower socioeconomic and give those schools some additional funds to assist with them in their learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 10, Mary, you're up first. According to the latest FSA data, 73% of our third grade students were not proficient in reading. We know reading is the foundation of a strong formative education. What is your vision for reading instruction in this district, and how do you plan to accomplish it?
Well, I think it's absolutely unconscionable that the district for so many years has had such a poor reading level comprehension at grade 3. And a student comes into the school district and in kindergarten and fails to learn to read. They go to first grade. They still can't read at grade level. Second grade. Finally, in third grade, the district, when they take a test for the school grade, they're willing to do something about it. It's almost too late. That child has had a history of feeling failure and struggling. They need to get the programs in there in the very, very early years, and not let a single student continue to flounder like that.
Thank you. Rick, according to the latest FSA data, 73% of our third grade students were not proficient in reading. We know reading is the foundation of a strong formative education. What is your vision for reading instruction in the district, and how do you plan to accomplish it?
My vision is that all students will be reading grade level by grade 3. Volunteer pre-K is very important. Make sure we fund those resources, having quality staff, give them all the training they need. And also for the outside vendors that are sending kids into pre-K or kindergarten, we need to make sure that they are keeping up with the standards required by the Department of Education to make sure those students are ready to come into kindergarten. And supporting parents also, with resources at home to work with their kids. The big thing is parents spend a lot of time with their kids, and we need to make sure they understand the reading part of it. And we'll spend the time with them and give them resources to work with. I read with my kids laying in bed. I fell asleep. It was the greatest thing I ever did. They read pretty good. But in the meantime, I think to make sure that the reading resources are there and the parents involved, and have the knowledge that they need to work with kids. It's not just about reading; it's about comprehension. It's about vocabulary. A lot of things you have to look at in reading. So,
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Scott. Same question. According to the latest FSA data, 73% of our third grade students were not proficient in reading. We know reading is the foundation of a strong formative education. What is your vision for reading instruction in this district, and how do you plan to accomplish it?
Thank you. With our accomplishments, and I say our because it takes many people, but under my leadership at Samoset Elementary School, we got our students into the 70 percentiles with reading, and that was 96% free and reduced. How did we do this? Well, gosh, in 1 minute, I can't answer all those, but I can give you an idea of a couple of them. One of them, I would always be into the superintendent asking to hold back certain students before they reach third grade so that we could get the basics in reading done with them. And up until last year, they were always allowed to be held back, and they improved and did very well. The other thing that we did at Samoset was creating half grades. Half grades is where a child who's in first grade but not quite reading on grade level next year would be put in second grade, but we would start the curriculum at 1.5 years and then speed them forward to catch up with the reading as an emphasis. And so those are only two of many things that we did there to get us into the 70 percentile. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine, same question. According to the FSA data, 73% of our third grade students were not proficient in reading. We know the reading is the foundation of a strong formative education. What is your vision for reading instruction in this district, and how do you plan to accomplish that?
Here's my vision. The onus that is put on third grade students through FSA testing, that they are failing in reading, that they are 1 to 2 levels behind, that they are holding our district back from school grades that, quite frankly, promote the best, promote real estate in certain areas, is totally unacceptable to me. The onus needs to put on the instruction that we are giving our children from the time they enter our schools, whether it's pre-K or kindergarten, and making sure through research that we know the areas of reading preparation that must be addressed. And that is the language of instruction that many kids come in not knowing. It's the language of work in school. It's not spoken in their homes. It's not acceptable to judge them that it's not. It must be our responsibility to teach it.
Time. Thank you. Question number 11. Rick, we're going to start with you. What experience do you have to be a change agent for Manatee County Schools, given the discussions in the United States about racial equity, racism, and the likely economic impact of COVID-19?
That's a very broad question. Thank you. Being a change leader with the district is making sure we understand the current cultural situation, I believe, and make sure we hear, from our constituents and also our students and our staff. With all the things going on in America, we need to make sure that the people are heard. Culture is a big thing in the school or school district. I've worked with principals that I've appointed that did turnaround leadership programs and were very successful because the culture of the school was like 75% Black and Hispanic. And by providing different interventions and working with the community, outreaches to the parents, mentors in the community, it made a big difference in that school administration and also the students' success. It's going to be a tough time in America, but we can address it. I think the main thing is that we have to have open communication, listen to people, and really hear what they're saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, same question. What experience do you have to be a change agent for Manatee County Schools, given the discussions in the United States about racial equity, racism, and the likely economic impact of COVID-19?
Great question. I've proven my ability as a change agent at Samoset Elementary School. When I arrived there, 24% were at grade level in reading and 23 in math, to over 70%. The school was 91% Black and brown students. We got that A. But we did many things for those students to understand that life and all that there is in it can be theirs, such as I took the entire school over the years, and one particular year, I took the entire school to the State College of Florida to show them that college is not that far away from us and that they could come there if they desired and worked hard in school at that time. I would stop students at the College of Color and ask them in front of my students, why are you here and going to college? And they would get the responses back. We had parent classes, evening classes at our school teaching GED and English, showing our students that parents desire the education. Thank you.
And thank you. Same question going to Christine. What experience do you have to be a change agent for Manatee County Schools, given the discussions in the United States about racial equity, racism, and the likely economic impact of COVID-19?
As an instructional leader for many years at Title I schools, I know the importance of putting instructors, putting teachers in front of our children who can develop relationship with those children. So it is possible even to close, for instance, the vocabulary gap of millions of words that many of our Title I students lack when they enter school. Representation matters. Let's have some policies that bring in more teachers that will match the race, the gender, the language, the ethnicity of our students. Only when you have proper relationship and the tendency to blame students for a school district not being able to achieve that A grade, or a school for that A grade, must end. We must focus on the instruction and the representation.
Thank you. Mary, question number 11. What experience do you have to be a change agent for Manatee County Schools, given the discussions in the United States about racial equity, racism, and the likely economic impact of COVID-19?
Okay, I'm going to answer that twofold. One is I have attended nearly all board meetings as an observer. And once I joined the audit committee, I stopped doing public comments, but finally I'd had it. And I addressed the board on their policies about the public comments. They've got to start listening to the people. There was a very ugly time about a year ago when the board was not allowing each other to talk. They weren't allowing the public to talk, and it has just deteriorated since then. The second, lost my train of thought. I'll just leave it at that. You've got to open it up and start listening to people.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to question number 12 of 13 scheduled questions tonight. Scott, starting with you, e-learning has been challenging for Black and Brown communities due to the digital divide. If elected, what is your plan to ensure students are equipped to succeed? What can you do to address these disparities?
Thank you. Excellent question. And you know, gosh, what a difficult situation we had for the last quarter of last year. And I don't know any school system or county that was real pleased with what they had done, but for putting it together after 2 weeks, I think they did a pretty good job. Did we learn a lot? Absolutely. We must do better and we must make it successful. I don't know if we're going to be able to be in brick and mortar schools for this year, you know, with everything going on. So it's going to be important that we make sure that that e-learning is up and running. And hopefully I would make sure that every child has the Wi-Fi system in their house, in the buses, whatever it takes to make it successful. And we must do that immediately. You know, thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Christine. E-learning has been challenging for Black and Brown communities due to the digital divide. If elected, what is your plan to ensure students are equipped to succeed? And what can you do to address these disparities?
I don't see any rule in public education that demands that a student or family have any particular setup in their house, whether it involves computers, devices, a person there that is educated enough to help a student with online learning. Those are not requirements that we must hold for our students. Whatever is necessary in developing a new instructional framework must have equal access for all students. The insistence has been that it's really necessary that with so many of our fragile students falling behind and the achievement gap increasing, Brown and Black students need to come back to school. That's what their people want. Well, we're seeing by the surveys that that's not what a lot of parents want. If parents want to choose online learning, they are to be provided with the necessary materials and components to complete that.
Thank you. Mary, same question. Would you like it repeated?
No, that's fine. And I say amen to what Christine said. They absolutely must provide what's necessary for online learning. I've heard of some communities where because my concern when they first started talking about this was by not having brick and mortar available 5 days a week, you could have students home alone. And let's face it, you know, the Black and Brown community, those parents need to work. They've got bills to pay. And some of the communities that I've heard of are forming like co-ops so that the students may be at house one, day one, and they work together and then go on to a different home the next day. And I think we're going to need to start being innovative on that and encourage those kinds of collaborations. And yes, provide them what they need.
Time, thank you. Rick, would you like the question repeated?
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
E-learning has been challenging for Black and Brown communities due to the digital divide. If elected, what is your plan to ensure students are equipped to succeed, and what can you do to address these disparities?
Well, first of all, I believe that the law says we have to offer free and public education one way or the other. And, you know, technology is a big thing. We want to make sure the district is really where it needs to be as far as infrastructure. We want to work with our community partners, internet companies, make sure the tower is accessible, maybe team up and run signals off the towers like we've done in the past. Also do a survey of the parents and make sure what their needs are. And, that makes a big difference. They need internet, computers, they need a mentor assigned to help their child. Work with the faith-based groups, community partners, youth centers, libraries, any place that has technology where we can have kids go and do school. If you can't get it at home or if there's no supervision, you partner with those people and get them to work with us. And they're great mentors. It's a bigger system than just the school and the classroom and at home. You have to look at the partnerships we can have with other people. A lot of kids I've worked with in Palm Beach County and other counties, we've done that. We've had different groups work with us, and they would mentor those kids and make sure they're on task, because parents do have to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 13, Christine, you will be starting us off. What is your vision for education for the community you hope to serve, and how do you expect to be held accountable for moving the district towards that vision?
As a board member, I know, because of my educational experience, I will be focused on not only closing an achievement gap, but eliminating it by accelerating education, by accelerating instruction, by increasing the self-worth of teachers so that teacher authority is returned to the classroom. And this is done by policy, and this is done by governing the superintendent to be sure that the most important communication, the most important data that is gathered is not through the FSA, but it is the continual interaction and daily interaction of data gathered every time a student encounters subject matter. Developing any new instructional framework, again, as I have said, means that we must use adaptive strategies, not based on political agenda, but based on research and science.
Thank you. Mary, same question. What is your vision for the education of the community that you hope to serve, and how do you expect to be held accountable for moving the district toward that vision?
Okay. My background, as I've said, is the finance. And that's the strength that I will bring to the board, is to help them allocate resources to pay for these things that everyone is talking about. If you don't have money, you don't have student achievement. And that's how I will be accountable to the district. In the past, the numbers are escaping me, but the grade level reading went up 3 points, and the budget increase was something like $400 million. It's not working. The resources are not helping educate the children, and I will be held accountable for that.
Thank you. Rick, same question. What is your vision for education of the community that you hope to serve, and how do you expect to be held accountable for moving the district toward that vision?
My expectation is that every child in Manatee County will succeed and learn and be on task at reading, math, and other skills. I believe that as a school board member, we need to make sure the resources are there. That means make sure teachers have what they need to work with, principals, professional development, and curriculum and textbooks that they know are working, and value that. Also believe that the board has to budget the money, because resources for that has to be in the budget. The bigger picture, I think, is to make sure that every child deserves to learn, and we need to make sure they get the best education we can, and not be complacent, as a board to rubber stamp things and move on. We got to look at the trends, the data, what's working and what's not working. Ask questions, ask for suggestions. Go back to your administrators, talk to your teachers. Ask them what they need. Look at the continuous improvement of each student, and also the district and individual schools, and make sure that we have the resources in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, same question, and then we'll move into our closing statements. What is your vision for the education of the community that you hope to serve? And how do you expect to be held accountable for moving the district toward that vision?
Absolutely. You know, all students need to be taught to their maximum potential. Um, they are ready with all the tools to go into life after high school and prepared to enter into the next chapter of their life. How will I be held accountable? Listening to parents, listening to teachers, the community, through Zoom meetings and with public meetings, listening to the ideas that people have. Hopefully, they will bring proactive ideas in to give us better ideas as to what we can be doing. Thank you.
All right, let's try that one again. Scott, we're going back to you. You have 2 minutes for your closing statements.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of tonight. Let me start by telling you that I will bring educational expertise and experience and the knowledge to the board. I will bring a calm, level-headed, even-tempered. I'm open-minded, and my management style is collaborative, with people as witnessed by my teachers, support staff, parents, and colleagues from my schools that I've been in charge of for 17 years. How can I help? I know that I can get a school to an A. I know how to listen. I am balanced, rational, sane, sensible, and cool-headed. I have some construction experience with the expansion of Samoset Elementary School. I have qualities such as the experience as a parent first, teacher, and principal, knowledge of running a school. I have common sense, I am sincere, and I am honest. Collaboration, as proven by my established councils in schools in reading, writing, math, science, culture, and climate. I understand the needs of teachers and students and parents. I understand the functioning of a school and what affects the culture and climate and how different things affect good teaching. I have 10 years of Title I experience. I have hiring experience with hiring over 50 teachers and support staff and county level positions. I need your vote, and I want to help make our school system a better place. Please visit me at scottboys.com for further information. That's Scott, BOYES.com. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Christine, you're up next. Closing statements, 2 minutes.
First of all, thank you for inviting us to this forum. It's been challenging and really rather enlightening. As a candidate that is campaigning for a school board seat, my platform has been clear, and we have tried to communicate it to as many voters as possible. There are some things I have touched on tonight that are central to my platform, such as the achievement gap, such as viewing equity not just as throwing dollars at a school or making sure, for instance, that the allocation of Title I dollars gets to a school. I think as a school board member that you must have background, you must have skill in deciding a policy perhaps that will increase cultural competency in our school, a policy perhaps that will increase the aspect of representation does matter, and that who we hire in our school is an important, very crucial decision to make as far as who the instructors are that we are putting in front of our children. Do they represent our children in our district, all of our children? I also feel that when equity is addressed, because it's common and it's common knowledge in any district, whether it's a small district of 12 schools or such a large district, such as ours with 50,000 students, that schools and their needs are going to be different. To assume that equity means that we just need to provide more dollar resources, I think school board members must have knowledge, and the superintendent must have knowledge of what that equity looks like. Sometimes it doesn't cost any money.
Thank you. Mary, 2 minutes, closing statements.
Thank you for having us this evening. Really enjoyed it. Our school district has a long way to go to manage its money for the benefit of students. It has a long way to go to increase student achievement. It has a long way to go to provide transparency. Students can't be successful if they don't have the necessary resources. And the finances of a school district are very complex and require a level of understanding beyond basic business management or financial planning. The board just approved a tentative budget for the new school year of $880 million. The taxpayers deserve to have a trained professional on the board to oversee it. On August 18th, the voters of Manatee County will make a decision. Will they vote to strengthen financial competence on the board, or will they maintain the status quo? Now, you can do nothing and things will continue to muddle on. You can pay your taxes to the school district that makes embarrassing headlines and bad decisions. Or you can put me on the board so that I can watch out for the money. If you want your taxes better spent, then I'm your candidate. The school board has a duty to act for the sole benefit of all students. In order to do that, it must effectively manage the district's assets to ensure there's quality staffing and resources. I will lead the district to be accountable so its students can achieve, and I ask for your vote on August 18th. If you would like more information, go to my website, mary-foreman.com. Good night.
Thank you. Rick, 2 minutes.
You don't have the timer app installed.
Sorry about that. She's not working very good. Thank you very much. It's been a great opportunity to be with you folks and also those that are watching. And first of all, I want to make sure that people understand where I'm coming from. You know, I'm a servant leader, always have been. Even before I became an educator, you know, I've worked in communities, outreach programs, worked with youth programs, ag programs, you name it. And then got involved in the school system after I got married, and then became a board member, and then a teacher, and then later a superintendent, school administrator. So I have a vast experience, everything from a classroom teacher to a school administrator teacher to a district administrator and a superintendent. And my 14 years of board experience has given me a lot of knowledge and experience. And I hope that, you know, I can unify the board with civility and to make sure that we're all working towards the same common good, and work with our staff, hear the staff, value what they have to say, make sure our teachers have the tools they need, the professional development, make sure our parents have trust in us that we can do the job we want to do. I believe that, you know, the district's going through some tough times, but we'll get through this. COVID-19 is going to be tough, but we got to make sure if we're elected to hit the ground running, make sure that everything is adjusted based on what the attendance is and what all the bugs in the system are, whether it's technology for students, they're online, whether it's classroom instruction, making sure class sizes are properly sized, make sure our teachers have their tools, make sure we have facilities, and making sure that parents have the confidence in what we're doing as a school board and district. You know, I ran big budgets, built big budgets, administered. So, you know, that's a very important part too. Taxes, the additional 2 mil tax will go away in 2 years unless it's reapproved. We have to make sure that we use those resources the way they were advertised to be used, and make sure that the community understands that we're going to be very good stewards of the money. And
time. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in today. Remember, there is a poll that is now posted, and you'll be able to make your voice heard. The results will be posted on Monday on Teaching for the Culture. The poll is at www.teachingfortheculture.com/MD3. This is Gregory Alexandria from BMO Harris Bank. thanking you, and also thanking Bianca Goolsby for putting this on and inviting us to learn more about the candidates for the Manatee County District School District 3 race. Have a great evening. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.